I had never liked the night shifts at Costco. There was something unnerving about being in such a vast, empty building after hours. The towering shelves, the fluorescent lights flickering above, there was always an eerie silence, like the place itself was holding its breath. But tonight, it was worse. Tonight, something felt off in a way I couldn't put into words. It started when I was pulling my cart down the aisle, mindlessly stocking some last-minute items. The hum of the refrigerator units was the only sound, and it made my ears ring, as if they were amplifying every little noise. Then I heard it. A soft scraping sound, coming from the far end of the aisle. I froze, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. I told myself it was nothing, just the building settling or maybe a delivery cart left unattended. But the sound continued, growing louder, more distinct, like something was dragging itself along the floor. I turned the corner, heart racing, expecting to see a pallet of goods that had somehow tipped over, but no. There was nothing but the empty aisle stretching before me. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone watching me from the shadows. Nothing. I shook it off. It was just the stress of the job. But then, a chill ran down my spine, and I realized, there was something in the air tonight. Something wrong. As I pushed my cart forward again, I heard it, louder this time, closer. It was unmistakable. Someone, or something, was dragging itself across the floor. I stood there for a moment, the sound of dragging still echoing in the distance, getting closer, like the steady rhythm of someone limping towards me. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. There was no way this was happening. I was alone in this section of the store. I double-checked my phone, no missed calls, no messages. I took a cautious step forward, my shoes clicking against the cold, sterile floor. The sound stopped. Silence. I froze in place, listening for any sign of movement. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest I thought it might give me away. Then, just as I was about to turn back to my cart, I saw it. A shadow. It wasn't a natural shape. It was too large, too disjointed, like something that didn't quite belong. The flickering lights above me barely illuminated the space, but I could make out the figure, a tall, hulking shadow standing still at the end of the aisle. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a person. It was too tall, its limbs too long. Before I could react, the shadow jerked forward, and I instinctively took a step back. The sound of dragging began again, closer now, like it was coming straight for me. My pulse raced as I backed up, eyes darting around for any escape. The aisles were long and narrow, but if I could make it to the front entrance, I'd be safe. But as I turned to run, something cold brushed against my ankle. I whipped around, my heart stopping. There, on the floor, was a hand. A pale, twisted hand with long, jagged nails, barely grazing the hem of my pants. The hand was connected to nothing, just an outstretched arm, lying on the floor like it had been abandoned. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short gasps. That's when I saw it. A face, half hidden behind one of the stacked pallets, staring at me with eyes that were wide open, unblinking. Its expression was hollow. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like someone had a hand wrapped around my ribcage, squeezing harder with each passing second. I stood frozen, eyes locked on the face that shouldn't have been there. It was pale, gaunt, with dark circles around its hollow eyes. Its skin looked as if it had been drained of life, stretched too thin over the bones. But the most terrifying thing? It wasn't moving. It was just staring at me, unblinking. I felt the hairs on my neck prickle as a sickening realization crept over me, that face wasn't human. No human could look like that. The dragging sound started again, but this time, it was right behind me. I spun around, my legs unsteady, and found myself face to face with the thing, if you could even call it that. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that were too long for its body, twisted at odd angles. Its arms hung by its sides, unnaturally limp, but its fingers, those fingers, they were stretched out in my direction, long and spindly, like they were reaching for me. The air grew colder, and I could smell something sour, like rot, mixed with something metallic. I gagged but forced myself to take a step back, then another, until I was up against the metal shelving. The creature took a step forward, its feet dragging across the floor, and with it, the silence of the store seemed to grow louder, more oppressive. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body refused to move. "Please," I whispered, my voice trembling, but it wasn't a plea, it was more like I was trying to convince myself that I wasn't dreaming. That this wasn't happening. Then, it spoke. Not with words, but with a sound, like nails scraping against a chalkboard, unbearable, grating. My ears rang, and I stumbled back, holding my hands over my ears, trying to block out the noise. But it only grew louder, more intense. I looked back at the face. It was gone. The pallet was empty, nothing but shadows. But then I felt it, a cold hand, cold and clammy, wrap around my wrist. The cold hand around my wrist was like ice, sending a shock through my entire body. It felt wrong, like it wasn't even flesh but something, unnatural. The grip tightened, and panic surged in my chest. I tried to yank my arm away, but it wouldn't budge. My eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, that could help. But all I saw were shelves of products, boxes of cereal, bottled water, cans of beans, nothing that could save me from whatever had a hold of me. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. There was no way I could just stand here, frozen in fear. I needed to fight, to get away. The sound of dragging feet was right behind me, louder now, almost deafening. The creature was close. Too close. The hand on my wrist pulled me forward, toward the noise, toward the thing that was coming for me. I struggled harder, my fingers digging into the cold metal of the shelf beside me, desperately trying to break free. The air was thick with that rancid, metallic stench, and the creature's presence loomed closer, suffocating. I could feel its breath on the back of my neck, like it was waiting, savoring the moment. Then, with a final, desperate pull, I wrenched my arm free from its icy grip. My wrist stung, but I didn't care. I spun around, eyes wide, searching the darkness of the aisle, hoping for some kind of refuge. But there was nothing. Just the vast emptiness of Costco, the flickering lights above me, and the creeping sound of something dragging itself toward me. I turned and ran, ignoring the sharp pain in my legs as they burned with the effort. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, the aisles growing longer, darker. I had no idea where the exit was anymore. All I knew was that I needed to get away from whatever was behind me. As I rounded a corner, I collided with someone. I gasped, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. "Who?" I started, but the words froze in my mouth. The person standing in front of me wasn't human either. Their skin was gray, like they had been drained of life. Their eyes, empty, hollow, stared straight through me. And then, before I could react, it grabbed my shoulder. A second one. I tried to scream, but my throat was too tight, the sound coming out in a strangled gasp. I barely had time to react before the second figure jerked me to the side, pulling me off balance. The grip on my shoulder was unyielding, and the moment I stumbled, another hand shot out, seizing my arm. My body was dragged toward the far aisle, a place I didn't recognize. I couldn't see the faces clearly, they were just shadows, twisted, pale figures with dark, lifeless eyes. But their hands, they were cold. Too cold. They burned into my skin, their fingers digging in, uncomfortably tight. I could barely breathe. Panic surged in my chest, choking me. I struggled against them, but my limbs felt heavy, like they were no longer mine. My vision swam, the store lights above flickering erratically. I was trapped. There was no escape. Then I heard it. A low, guttural noise. A sound that didn't belong in any human throat, a strange, scraping hum that resonated in my bones, sending shivers down my spine. The figures surrounding me began to move, slowly, methodically, as if they were part of some grotesque ritual. They pulled me further into the darkness of the store, their hollow eyes fixed on me, their heads tilting at odd angles, as if they were studying me like prey. Suddenly, a voice, clear, but impossibly distorted, broke through the silence. "Join us." The voice wasn't human. It was deep, hollow, almost mechanical, like it had been stretched too far, pulled from something ancient. I couldn't move, couldn't even blink. The words echoed in my mind, vibrating my skull. "Join us." The figures around me leaned closer, their cold breath mingling with mine, smelling of decay. My heart raced in my chest, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break free of their grip. I was sinking deeper into their hold, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. But then, something strange happened. The one figure, its face the closest to mine, shifted. Its jaw opened, impossibly wide, its teeth jagged and sharp. And in that moment, something clicked in my brain, a flicker of recognition. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to get away, now. I wasn't going to be their next victim. With one final, desperate effort, I threw myself sideways, twisting out of their grip. I don't remember much after that, just the overwhelming feeling of terror as I scrambled to my feet and ran, faster than I ever thought possible, down the dark aisles of Costco, away from them, away from their cold, predatory grip. I could still hear them, scraping, dragging, growing closer, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I ran like my life depended on it, because it did. My heart hammered in my chest, the sound of my boots slamming against the floor echoing through the empty aisles, mingling with the grotesque, dragging sound behind me. Each step felt like an eternity. My breath came in ragged gasps, the air growing heavier, colder, as if the very building was closing in on me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But every fiber of my being screamed that something was chasing me, something worse than I could even comprehend. The lights above flickered again, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to reach for me with each passing second. As I rounded a corner, I saw it, a door at the end of the aisle. The emergency exit. I wasn't sure if it was real or if I was hallucinating from the fear and exhaustion, but it was the only chance I had. I ran toward it, my legs burning with the effort, my body pushing through a fog of terror. I was almost there when I heard it, a deep, guttural growl, like the thing was ready to pounce. My blood ran cold. I glanced over my shoulder, just for a second. The figures, the ones who had grabbed me before, were right behind me, moving fast, their limbs jerking unnaturally as they dragged themselves closer. They weren't walking. They were lurching, crawling, like they didn't need to use their legs. I forced myself to focus on the door ahead. One last push, and I could make it out. My fingers brushed the cold metal of the door handle, and with a strength I didn't know I had, I yanked it open. The cold night air hit me like a wave, sharp and biting, but I didn't care. I threw myself out into the parking lot, my legs almost giving way beneath me as I hit the asphalt. I didn't stop to look behind me. I didn't dare. I just ran. I made it to my car. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely get the keys into the ignition. I turned the engine over, the sound of it roaring to life breaking through the haze of fear that had consumed me. Without a second thought, I slammed the car into gear and sped out of the parking lot, leaving Costco, and whatever I'd just encountered, far behind me. As I drove, I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something, those hollow eyes, those long, twisted limbs, watching me from the darkness. But the road was empty. The night was still. I didn't know what had happened back there. What those things were. But I knew one thing, I was never going back. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those faces, those hollow, lifeless eyes, staring back at me from the darkness. Every time I heard a sound, my heart would skip a beat, expecting to hear the scraping footsteps, the growls, the dragging. The next morning, I went to work as if nothing had happened. I thought about calling in sick, but I couldn't explain why. I didn't even have the words for what I'd experienced. It didn't make sense. I kept telling myself it was a nightmare, that I'd imagined it all, that the exhaustion had gotten the best of me. But when I walked into the Costco parking lot that morning, something stopped me dead in my tracks. The front doors were wide open. I stared at them for a long moment, my stomach twisting. I knew they had been locked when I left. There was no way they would have been open overnight. I hadn't seen a single car when I'd driven away. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe someone else had come by, opened the doors to start their shift. Or maybe, no. No, I wouldn't let myself think that. I didn't want to go inside. I didn't want to see anything that might make what happened feel real. But I had no choice. I had to go in. I had to face it. The air inside was thick and cold, just like it had been the night before. The flickering lights above cast eerie shadows, making the empty store feel even more ominous. I stepped inside cautiously, the sound of my footsteps loud in the silence. The store looked the same, shelves stocked with goods, aisles neatly arranged. It seemed normal, but something was off. I walked deeper into the store, my senses on high alert, my eyes scanning every corner. That's when I saw it. A single handprint. It was smeared across one of the large refrigerators, a pale, distorted handprint, like something had pressed against it from the other side, slowly, deliberately. My heart dropped into my stomach. I turned to leave, but I wasn't alone. Standing at the end of the aisle was one of them, the same figure I'd seen the night before. It wasn't moving. Just standing there, its hollow eyes fixed on me, staring with that same cold, empty gaze. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The thing didn't move, but I could feel it, in the way the air around me seemed to grow heavier, colder. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, caught in its gaze. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, disappearing into the shadows of the store. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, it was gone. I didn't wait for anything else to happen. I turned and ran, again. Out of Costco, out into the daylight, where the sun was rising, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. It wasn't over at all. I didn't go back to Costco after that. I couldn't bring myself to. Even though I'd told myself the night before that I'd never return, a part of me was still haunted by what I'd seen, and what I couldn't explain. There was something about that place, something about those figures, that wouldn't let me go. It was like they were following me, waiting for me to come back. Days passed, and life slowly returned to normal, or at least, I pretended it did. I went to work, hung out with friends, tried to convince myself that everything was fine. But every time I walked into a dark room or passed an empty hallway, that same chill would run down my spine. Every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the faintest sound of dragging, too faint to be real, but too persistent to ignore. One evening, a week after the incident, I got a call. It was from Sarah, a coworker I used to work the night shift with at Costco. I hadn't heard from her since that night. "Hey," she said, her voice low, almost strained. "I know this is going to sound crazy, but I need you to come to Costco. Something's wrong. Really wrong." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't want to go back there, not for anything. But the panic in Sarah's voice was enough to make me reconsider. What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "I don't know how to explain it, but I think we're being watched. It started the night you left, after you disappeared. It's like they're still here. I saw something in the store today. I don't know if it was real, but I'm on my way," I interrupted, cutting her off. I didn't need to hear more. If she was asking for help, then something was happening again, and I needed to see it for myself. I drove to Costco faster than I should have, my heart pounding in my chest. The building loomed ahead, dark and silent under the night sky. The parking lot was nearly empty, with only a few cars parked along the edges. The store's lights flickered, casting erratic shadows across the lot. When I stepped inside, I immediately felt it. The air was thick, cold, and heavy, just like it had been that night. My breath came out in visible puffs, but the chill wasn't from the temperature, it was from something else, something far more unsettling. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice echoing through the empty aisles. No answer. I walked deeper into the store, each step feeling like it was taking me further into a nightmare I couldn't escape. The lights above flickered sporadically, casting brief flashes of light that only seemed to highlight the darkness that surrounded me. Then, I heard it, the sound of dragging. My heart lurched. It was so faint at first, but then it grew louder, closer. I instinctively turned toward the sound. My blood ran cold as I saw it. A shadow, no, a figure, crawling down the aisle toward me. Its movements were jerky and unnatural, dragging itself like it was trying to reach me. I stepped back, but the figure didn't stop. It came closer, dragging itself with purpose. But then, through the darkness, a voice called out to me, soft, breathless, barely audible. "Help, me," it was Sarah's voice. I didn't know what to do. My heart was hammering in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Sarah's voice, it was her, but something was wrong. It didn't sound right. It sounded hollow, distant, like it was being pulled from somewhere far beneath the earth. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. All I could do was stare at the figure dragging itself closer, its twisted form gliding through the shadows. The dragging sound was deafening now, filling the empty space around me. But still, I could hear Sarah, her voice a fragile whisper, pulling me toward the thing I feared most. "Help me," the figure's head lifted, its face emerging from the dark. I saw the hollow eyes, black, endless, and then the mouth opened, stretched wide. I could hear the sound of its jaw cracking as it grinned, its teeth sharp and jagged, like something that wasn't meant to be alive. It wasn't Sarah. It was something pretending to be her. My mind screamed for me to run, but my body refused to move. I was paralyzed, caught in its gaze, unable to look away. But then, as if on instinct, I took a step back. Just one. And then another. And another, until I was moving faster, turning away, heading straight for the exit. I heard the scraping sound behind me, closer now, faster. "No!" I shouted, my voice hoarse, desperate. "Get away from me!" I reached the door, my hand shaking as I pulled on the handle. It didn't open. I yanked harder, but the door wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me, and I turned, glancing over my shoulder. The figure was standing right behind me now, its mouth gaping wider with each passing second. I could feel the coldness in the air, the weight of its presence bearing down on me. "Help me!" Sarah's voice echoed, but this time it was distorted, like it was coming from 1,000 miles away. In a frantic, final effort, I reached for the emergency alarm on the wall and slammed my hand down on it. The screech of the alarm filled the air, so loud it nearly deafened me. The figure recoiled, its limbs twitching violently, and for a moment, the air around me seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Then, like a nightmare vanishing with the dawn, it was gone. I stood there, breathless, my heart still racing, but the store was silent once more. The dragging sound had stopped. Sarah's voice was gone. Everything was still. I couldn't understand what had just happened, or why, but I knew, somehow, that I had survived. I didn't wait. I ran out of that building, not looking back, not stopping for anything. I jumped in my car, locked the doors, and sped away, leaving Costco and whatever horrors were hidden inside it behind me. I never went back. I never spoke to Sarah again. And I certainly never told anyone what happened, because I knew they wouldn't believe me. All I know now is this: whatever I saw that night, whatever those things were, they're still out there. Waiting. And they'll never stop looking for me.